Hello and welcome. I'm Joy Williamson-Lott, Dean of the University of Washington Graduate School, home of the Office of Public Lectures. I want to thank you for joining us for the Graduate School Digital Series, Sexually Speaking, with UW's very own Dr. Pepper Schwartz. In this 5-part short series, Dr. Schwartz will answer questions on love, relationships, and of course, sex. There should be a little something for everyone, we hope. And now a little bit about Dr. Schwartz. Dr. Pepper Schwartz is professor of sociology at the University of Washington. She received her BA and MA from Washington University in St. Louis and her PhD from Yale University. She is past president of the Society for the Scientific Study of Sexualities and past president of the Pacific Sociological Association. The American Sociological Association has given her the Award for Public Understanding of Sexuality and the Simon and Gagnon Award for Distinguished Work on Sexualities. She is the author of 25 books and over 50 academic articles. She was the Love, Sex, and Relationship Ambassador for the AARP for over a decade, and for the last 7 years has appeared as a relationship expert on the Lifetime television program Married at First Sight. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to answering your questions about sexuality and relationships. Well, stay tuned and here we go. If you're online and you're spending a lot of time talking to people, unless you are on a site that's about sexual kinks or about sexuality, it's likely that you will freak somebody out if you bring up sexual kinks out of the blue. If there are sites for people who are seeking people who have various kinks, and if that's really, really important to you, I suggest you go on that site and see what they're like and see what it's like there. Because when it's really important to people, they often organize their dating life, with others of similar motivations, right? If it's just a general dating site, you can bring it up, but it might just scare someone off, even somebody who has that kink, because they might think, well, if they're going to do this, and we've just been chatting about life and love and our values, and it's coming out right there, maybe this is more than I can handle, right? So I would say, until you're like getting to know somebody a little better, I would not talk about that unless that is going to be your main attachment to someone. You need to know that, and if they're not into what you're into, you can't handle the relationship, well, then so be it. But in general, if it's that important to you, see if you can find some group or some dating site where you can sort by those kinds of interests. I think you think too much. I think you have anxiety anyhow, and that this has probably promoted anxiety that you generally have towards important things in life, and maybe unimportant ones as well. The fact is, a lot of things happen because of necessity, as opposed to, the fine process of thinking about whether or not you should move in together. Sometimes I don't think it really should matter how things start. It matters how they go. and you're telling me this has gone really well. Why would you worry that the way it started wasn't orthodox, that it wasn't, a conversation, when you've already had more proof of product than most people do because you have seen it? You have a good relationship. If you have some feelings that this is not the person for you, even though you're getting along well, that's a different question. But if it's really going well, and this is a really fortunate happenstance, accept it, embrace it. Don't think things have to go a certain way to be a good thing. Life isn't that clean and orderly anyhow. If it's enjoyable, celebrate it and go forward. I'm not sure what you mean by let him go. Should you end the relationship, or are you saying let him go out and see people? This is a tough one because you're right. With COVID-19, what one partner does can put the other person in jeopardy. And if he's at the end of his rope because he hasn't seen other people done anything in a long time, I can understand that too. People have different tolerances of how hermetically sealed they can be. I think it might be where you could sit and talk and say, well, okay, what kind of social distancing remedial act do you want to do? Do you want to see your best friend? Do you want to, what level of opening up the situation are you going to go after? So, for example, if he says, well, I just want to hang out with a buddy and, watch a game or something, you go like, well, okay, how about if you're going to do something like that, either you ask them to get a COVID test, or afterwards you go and get one of the quick COVID tests, and you can get the information at the end of the day. There are places you can go. Some of them are free. And you wear a mask with me when you come home until we get the results of the test. It seems to me there's intermediate ways of working this that aren't all or nothing. I really understand where some people are just jumping out of their skin. It's been a year or more, depending on when your realization of how serious this was happened. And you could be in a state where some parts of the state, even like our state of Washington where we're at, some in the western part of the state, everybody is like into the masks. In the eastern part of the state, not as much. There's some cultural norms and angers and political affiliations that are behind some of these differences as well, and that ups the ante about how much they bother people, right? But I believe there are always deals to be made among good people of goodwill, and I believe you could figure out a way that your partner could get a little bit more freedom, and they could also do some things that would make you feel safe. I don't think it's weird. I think you're getting what you need from the interaction. You're having a lot of interaction. And I think we get used to things. I think we're creatures of habit, which is like, all right, our brain says we're not going to see somebody. We get used to it. We accept it. And, things turn off that aren't useful. I always think about sex as a little bit like food. Bear with me for a moment here. People who eat very little are usually not very hungry. They've learned to moderate how much food they need. And people who aren't being sexual don't have as big an appetite as people who are sexual a lot. It's sort of like appetite builds appetite. And I think that can go on to romantic relationships too. You get tapped down. You get used to what you're getting as opposed to what you used to get. I guess the question I would ask you, are you looking forward to these conversations? Does this conversation still interest you? Are you still sweet on this person, or has it turned into kind of a friendship that you could take or leave? If it's the latter, well, now that tells you something. If it's still a really important relationship to you, then so be it. You've just accommodated to the circumstances. Well, sorry, sometimes I can't help but giggle thinking about some of these circumstances, like trying to have sex so quietly that nobody else will hear you. It can be done, of course, probably not its highest and best moment, but it can be done. But I do understand why that would worry and inhibit a partner. So my thought is, do you have anybody who could take your kids for a while, or you could go over to their place and they would babysit for a couple hours for you? I mean, there must be somebody in your life that you could make a decision with to cover for you with the kids, have them go out and play for an hour or two, coming over, or vice versa. They would come over to your house, babysit a while during the naps or playtimes or whatever, and you would go over there and, have some intimate moments together. Or for that matter, if you have the funds, go to a motel for a couple hours. I think there are ways to do this. And I think the important thing would be, okay, we're two bright people. Let's put our heads together. How do we do this? I've given you some idea, but there might be others. I don't know the age of the kids, so I could be more specific if I did. But the idea is, it's not fair to stop your sex life for months and months. Figure this out, and it can be done. Ask your friend, your partner, who is the person who's holding this up, what can we do to figure out a way to have sex without the kids being able to listen to us? Let's figure it out. I think it's important, if you're looking for a relationship versus a hookup, to just say it. As you get to know somebody, the initial pleasantries of what do you do, who are you, assuming you've done some of that online, or you've in some ways met in a way that these things will be on the table, then the next thing to go on is say, I'm at a time in my life where I'm really looking for someone who I can really get to know, and not for a night, but get to know and really see where that can take us. I think it's important to put your cards on the table. Why waste your time and maybe theirs? Because maybe that's what they're looking to hear. And if they're not, why waste your time? You know where you want to go.